Today we're going to learn how to ask questions in English using which, when, where, and why. These are very important question words, and they help us ask about choice, time, place, and reason. We will also learn how to answer these questions correctly using simple structures. Let's start with which. We use which when we want to choose between two or more things. For example, which apple is red? That one is red. Which skirt do you like, the red one or the blue one? I like the red one. Which dress is on sale? The black one. In these questions, we choose from a limited number of options. Remember that which is usually followed by a noun. For example, which trousers do you like? Which city is bigger? Which apple is green? If the noun is already known, we can use one or ones. For example, I have red apples and green apples. Which ones do you want? I want the red ones. This helps us avoid repeating the noun. Now let's look at when. We use when to ask about time. For example, when do you go to work? I go to work at 8 a.m. When does he come home? He comes home at 6 p.m. When did you play football? I played football at 5 p.m. So when, time. Next, we have where, which we use to ask about places or locations. For example, where is the bank? It is on Baker Street. Where do you work? I work in an office. Where does he play football? He plays at the sports centre. Where did you go? I went to the store. So, where and place. Now let's look at why. We use why to ask about the reason for something. For example, why do you work? I work because I need money. Why do you live in London? I live in London because I work here. Why did you eat vegetables? Because I like them. So why reason? To answer why questions, we often use because. This word gives the reason and connects two ideas. For example, I'm late because the bus didn't arrive on time. He studies because he wants a good job. They go on vacation because they want to relax. The structure is subject plus verb plus because plus subject plus verb. Now let's review questions with the verb to be. The structure is we word plus to be plus subject. For example, where are you? Why are you here? When is the football game? Where were you yesterday? Why is the apple on the table? Notice that we change the order of the words compared to a normal sentence. For example, you are at the store. Where are you? With which and the verb to be, we use is, was for singular nouns and are were for plural nouns. For example, which apple is on the table? Which apples are on the table? Which dress was black? Which dresses were black? Which one is blue? Which ones are blue? This helps us match the verb with the noun. Now let's look at questions with action verbs. In these questions, we use do, does, or did. The structure is way word plus do, does, did, plus subject, plus verb. For example, when do you play football? I play football on Fridays. Where do you work? I work in a restaurant. Why did you go to the store? I went because we needed milk. Which book did you read last week? I read a book. Remember that after do, does, did, we use the base form of the verb. Let's see some more examples in context. Which place do you like, the beach or the mountains? I like the beach. When do you go on vacation? I go in summer. Where do you go? I go to the mountains. Why do you go there? Because it is relaxing. We can also talk about celebrations. When is Easter? When is Ramadan? Where do people celebrate? Why do they celebrate? To summarize, which, when, where, and why are very useful question words. We use which for choices, when for time, where for place, and why for reasons. We often answer why with because. Learning these structures will help you ask and answer questions clearly in everyday English.